Hello, I'm Dave. This is Fiverr and this is Logan. Thanks for joining us. Now, slightly different video today. It's not going to be a countryside walk. I thought I'd do a questions and answers session. Now, this is the first time I've done something like this, so forgive me. I'm a little bit outside my comfort zone. I don't think these two will be going anywhere soon either. Well, a few weeks ago, I put out a request on the Facebook page and also the YouTube channel, just asking for some questions from viewers, basically about the channel and the dogs. Had a super response. I've got the questions here. So all we'll do is we'll kick on. So grab yourself a tea and coffee. I'm going to need my glasses for this. See how we go. Right. Well, the first question comes from Mark Arnold on the Facebook page. Thank you, Mark. Is there a walk from your many videos that you have considered revisiting, either to see how it's changed season to season, or just over time, or because there was more content than fitted in just one video? Well, good question. When I started the channel 6 years ago, all of my videos were on the New Forest, and I've done something like 100 now. So although it's difficult finding new venues and places to walk, I'm finding the odd one from time to time. But when I look back at some of those early videos, they weren't good. I mean, the equipment was quite poor. The production was very poor and the editing was appalling. I used the same piece of music all the way through. The music would suddenly stop. There'd be no fading in or fading out. So certainly something I think I'll look at in the future is going back onto some of those walks, maybe combining two walks into one and doing it slightly differently. Well, a good question though. Question from Rachel Turner-Smith. Hello, Rachel. I know you've been a viewer for many years. I hope you're well. I have a question. Of all the walks you've done with Logan over the years, do you have a favourite walk? And if so, would you revisit with Fiverr? And a similar question also from the history student. Hi, Dave. I was wondering, out of all the countryside walks you've done, whether one or more stand out as a favourite and why. Well, I think I covered this when I did the last video that Logan and I did before his retirement. All of the Jurassic Coast I absolutely adore. And I guess my favourite walk would be at Worth-Matravers, a little circular walk there, 2-3 miles. Starts and finishes at the Square and Compass pub. Surely the best pub in Dorset. They serve the beer and the cider through a hatch in the door. There's no bar as such, and the only food they do is things like pasties and cake, which is lovely stuff. But the setting is terrific. So I've been there a few times, and I have taken Fiverr on a walk there as well. Next question, Robert Taylor. Hi, Dave. I recall you saying Worth-Matravers was your favourite walk. Indeed. All your walks are wonderful. It must be hard to single one out. Do you have a favourite walk or a short list of favourites within the New Forest? I love filming those New Forest river walks, the streams, where I basically follow the course of a river from its source to the end. And there was one I filmed quite recently, I don't think it's been published yet, where Fiverr and I followed the course of the Latchmore Brook. And the great thing about it was, I actually said this on camera, I was filming on the August bank holiday, so the world and his wife would have been out, very busy, but I didn't come across one single person on that walk. I was able to keep right close to the course of the stream. It helped that we've had a dry summer and it was bone dry. But none of the route went on private land as far as I can remember. and it was such a lovely mixture. There was a bit of heathland and there was a bit of woodland. I'd say those are the types of my favourite walks in the New Forest. Right, next question. Peter Luke. How about a Christmas special with a few amusing outtakes? There must be some. That's a good question. And following your question, Peter, I have actually now made a video of bloopers. Hopefully it'll come out okay, because I tend not to keep my old footage because I film in 4K, so the files are pretty big. So I once they're uploaded to YouTube, I just download them back in a lower resolution. But I've made a video, 7 or 8 bloopers, I think. Most of them you probably would have seen because I tend to put them in at the end of a video, but I think there's a couple of new ones. There's one blooper that I did do with Logan, which I wish I'd kept. We were filming at Diddling in West Sussex. We were doing the end scene at the top of a Bronze Age barrow. So I'd got Logan sitting at the top of the barrow and the camera position was at the bottom. Got recording, rushed up to the top of the barrow, sat on the barrow and immediately fell back, and you see both legs, and all you can see on the camera is my legs going back and I disappear on the other side. And the great thing, Logan, he didn't move a muscle. You know, he sort of looked to one side, seeing me there, and then looked back to the camera. I mean, it was brilliant. It just wasn't very elegant. I was a little bit embarrassed, so I never actually published. I say I wish I kept it now. Next question. This is from somebody called Too Busy Gardening. Hi, Dave, Logan and Fiver. Your navigational skills are obviously excellent. Well, don't know about that, but I was wondering if you ever got lost. Yes. I'm pretty okay in the New Forest. I'm pretty good at being able to read the land. The way the trees grow, we have southwesterly winds around these parts, so they tend to bend in a certain direction. And if you look at their roots, they tend to sort of spread out more on the southwestern side, or sort of hanging on, as it were. So I tend not to get lost there. I do have trouble sometimes in Dorset because some of the routes I go on, I'm picking public footpaths that probably haven't been used for a couple of years, perhaps, and a lack of way markers as well. There's always that great sense of relief when you come across a way marker. That's for sure. But no, yeah, I have got lost, but that's part of the fun of it, really. I've never been lost, just sort of lost, if you know what I mean. Next question from Kevin Wing. Your videos have been a great joy to us ever since a year ago we first started thinking of moving to Dorset, which we have now done and love it. Is there ever an opportunity to meet you, and do you ever do any talks or similar? I have been asked to do talks from time to time. If I'm being honest, I'd be a bit uncomfortable about it because I'm not an expert and I'm certainly not a historian. I'm just a bloke going out in the countryside with his dog filming. So I've always declined. And as far as meeting folk, well, of course, I come across viewers all the time on walks, which is lovely. Of course, that's one of the reasons I started handing out those limited edition countryside badges and beer mats. But it's lovely when I do get to meet folk. Next question from somebody called Rebel 7722. I just wondered what you thought about the New Forest charging for parking next spring. Well, it is going to affect me because I walk the dogs every day on the forest. I use the Forestry England car park. So yeah, for those people that don't know the area too well, there are plans in spring 2026 for the authorities to start charging for parking in the New Forest. There's something like 129 car parks that are managed by Forestry England, And since the dawn of time, well, the dawn of the motor car, they've been free, and they're going to start charging. Now, I have got down here the fee. Yeah, they're talking about £1.50 for an hour, £3 for 2 hours, £5 for 4 hours, and £8 for over 4 hours. But you can get membership with Forestry England of £8 a month, £96 a year. Well, for those folk in the New Forest, we buy these parking clocks from the New Forest District Council, and they allow you to park for 3 hours short term in a number of different car parks in some of the towns and villages in the New Forest. Now that costs £45 a year, I think. 96, maybe a bit steep. I suppose I don't mind paying. If I think, I would say probably about once a year, the authorities do come and regrade the car park and fill in the potholes. So I'm guessing there's a cost to that. But there we go. It's going to happen. I think there could be problems though, because I don't think they're going to have pay and display machines. You have to pay with your mobile phone. And my experience of using a mobile phone in the New Forest is that the signal's not that great. And also there's a bylaw which goes back to 1982, which, believe it or not, says that you are allowed to park on the side of the highway. So maybe they'll change the bylaw, I don't know. Next question from Joyce Crooks. I just love your wonderful dogs, Dave. How long does it take you to film a walk, bearing in mind you have to walk backwards and forwards setting up the camera? And there's a similar question from Paul Morris. Hi Dave, have you ever thought about posting the amount of steps you do? Might just be me, as I'm curious as to how many, as when you do your walk to and away from the camera, you've still got to set it up and back again. Well, I don't have a Fitbit, so I've no idea how many steps I do, but goodness, yes, I mean, a 5-mile walk can take 5 hours to film easily. Not just the sort of setting up of the tripod. I can be waiting for the sun to come out from behind a cloud. I'm sure there's a celestial body up there that is watching me the whole time, and as soon as I get the tripod out, they push a cloud over the sun. A lot of re-filming. Often I'll film in a village in the morning when the sun's on one side of the street, and then film in the afternoon when the sun's on the a switch direction. And then there's filming in a church that can take ages. A lot of stopping to take photos. I mean, I'll take 180 photos on a walk easily. And then it's just things like constantly checking, is the audio okay? Is the microphone plugged in? Is the screen clear? It's so easy to brush against a leaf and that's got insect poo or something, and you've got a smeared screen. And then things like when I'm filming in a village, if it's a busy road, for example, or there's lots of people about, I'll often perhaps film, but then do the commentary later out in the countryside where it's quiet. And also, if it's a really windy day, I might be, filming a view, but then rush behind a bush to get out of the view to do the commentary. So, yeah, it can be quite exhausting, which is why I always end up in the pub, probably. Next question from Nick JH, 1968. Do you plan on doing any more collaboration videos? Yes, I've done 3 or 4, I think now, and they've been great fun. I did one with Nick of Walking the Weird, one with Peter Frost, the New Forest artist. Recently did one with Paul Whitewick, and I've just done one with Patrick Leach, the Solitary Rambler, although that was slightly different because it was his video and Fiver and I were acting as his guide on the New Forest, although I did seem to do a lot of talking, so it's really his video. But yeah, I have got another one planned for next year. I won't give any details, A, in case it doesn't happen, and B, the person I'm doing it with, I don't know if they'd be happy for me telling you now before it happens. I'm sure they wouldn't mind, but it should be a good one. Right, next question from Mick Philby. Are there any walks around the areas of Somerset, Dorset, the New Forest that can be used by people with mobility scooters, not the off-road type? Oh, goodness. Well, I suppose, I mean, there are a number of walks that you can do using the, the Forestry England gravel tracks. A place like Iworth Pond, for example, you could park at the pond and then walk along the track. You could walk from Fritham. It does get hilly in parts there. But another place to think about is the Castleman Trailway at either end, either starting at the Brockenhurst end at Longslade Bottom and then go to Wootton Bridge, or at the other end where you could start and finish at the Holmesley Tea Room. But that's going to be fairly flat. I think you can get through onto the track there through the gate, because it's it's a bridleway, so it's big enough for a horse to get through. But yeah, good question. Question next from NP Gilly or Gilly. Hi Dave, is there any chance you'll be doing a walk from Watership Down, past Ladle Hill, then onto the abandoned railway track, Didcot to Winchester line? Yeah, I'll certainly put it on the list. Logan and I did a walk quite a long time ago from Hannington, which went up to Watership Down. Of course, Watership Down, the book, is where Fiver gets his name from, because Fiver was the name of the rabbit. Now, we've got 3 questions here that are all fairly similar. Firstly, Liz Corbett, I love your relaxed style and content. How much research do you have to prepare prior to your walks? The historical context you provide is fascinating. Thank you from Canada. Jean Blemmings, well, I know Jean, hello to you. How do you research your walks and what sources of information do you recommend? And then Richard Filer, hopefully I pronounced that correctly. How do you decide where to go for your walk videos? You have visited many wonderful places in your walks over the years, many that were new to me and hadn't heard of. Do you use books, study maps, go on recommendations, etc.? Well, goodness me. I mean, my modus operandi is that I will do my filming between, say, March and beginning of November, when the weather's good, and then November through to February, that's when I'll do all my research. Each video, I guess, probably takes 3 or 4 hours to research, and I'll start off, I suppose, trying to identify somewhere to go. What I'm looking for in a walk is 3 really interesting aspects. It might be a village that's also close to a Iron Age hill fort, that's also close to a, I don't know, disused railway, something like that. And then the rest of the walk you can build around that. So I'll look for a circular walk perhaps, plot it on the Ordnance Survey map, then look at Google Maps, where you can get the little man and go down and actually see what it's like from the road, find a place to park, that sort of thing. The next thing I'll look at probably are the old maps from the National Library of Scotland, 1902 maps, that sort of thing, because that'll show things that were there in the past, maybe an old pub or an old mill, something like that. Other areas I'll look for research, British History Online, the local village website is usually very good. Wikipedia is a good place to start, but I wouldn't rely on anything that's on there. And the next stage then is just jotting down in sort of note form little bits of information about every aspect. Of course, if I'm going to start, bleating out facts, they've got to be right. So there's a lot of double checking and triple checking and making sure I've got, you know, quite a few sources. I'm giving all my secrets away here, but I mean, here's an example of some preparation work that I'm going to be doing. I won't tell you where it is, but that's the sort of map that I'll prepare and the route. And then the notes, it's not a script as such, but it's just little bits and pieces. And this particular walk, you know, there's an introduction in the church, and I start looking through the village. There's a lovely old oak tree. A lot of history with this one. Well, if I tell you, you'll probably work out where it is, but there's a connection with Dick Whittington and Enid Blyton. There's a pub. Yes, like some tremendous, there's an old castle, a tributary, another little settlement, a couple of buildings that used to be pubs, another little church, a manor house. I mean, it goes on. It should be, oh, so you're going to resettle? Yes. You're going to turn around. There we go. Change sides. You're a good boy, aren't you? There we go. Where was I? Oh, yes. And of course, after I've done the walk, you know, the filming itself, there's the editing and the uploading to look forward to, which, well, I don't enjoy that at all. I don't have any skills with computers, and even now it's quite hard work. Two similar questions here. Robert Bryan, would be interesting to see what video audio equipment you use. And also Alan Aberhart, I'm interested in what equipment you use. Well, I won't go on too much about this because I could talk for absolute hours on the equipment I use. The stuff I use now, the main camera is the GoPro 12, and that's what I'm filming on now. I think the image quality of the GoPro is terrific. The one downside is that it's not very good in low light. So any time that I'm in a building, in a church, or, you know, in a dark wood, then I'll swap over to this. This is the Insta360 Ace Pro, and this has a low light setting, which it's amazing. You know, you can be in a very dark church and it'll look so light on here. The only reason I don't use this the whole time is that when you're vlogging, even if I'm going like that, it doesn't quite focus brilliantly. I mean, the viewer might not notice, but you know, it's not 100%. And also, I don't think the image is quite as sharp as the GoPro. So I'll probably use that about 20% of the time. And then there's my new toy, which I've had for about a year or so now. The HoverAir X1. It's a tiny little drone that takes off and lands on your hand. So you literally whip it out your pocket, press one button to start it and press another button, and it'll take off and do something pre-programmed. You can use it with your mobile phone if you want, but it's redesigned for vlogging, and you get some good footage for it. It's not quite as good as the GoPro, but it is 4K, and because it's so light, it's not that great when it's windy, but it just adds a bit of variety. The camera that I use just for the normal sort of still shots is this. What is this? This is a Canon Powershot SX530HS. It's not too expensive, about £180 perhaps, but for what it is, I think that's excellent value, and it's got a tremendous zoom on it as well. And the audio, there's two wireless mics I use. The one I'm using now, which is fairly recent, the DJI Mic 3, but sometimes I'll use the Rode wireless as well. And the other equipment, well, I'll put a photograph up on screen as the tripod. It's always difficult with tripods. Ideally, you want something that's really, really solid, but that's going to be quite heavy. You don't want something that's too flimsy either. Whereas this one, it's kind of best of both worlds, but it folds really nicely to, I don't know, 14 inches, something like that. As I could go on for absolutely ages about equipment, but it might be a bit boring. Next question from Freddie Humphrey. Hi Dave, have you got anything special planned for when you reach 10,000 subscribers on YouTube? Probably a cup of tea. I mean, I'm nearly there. I'm at 9,600, something like that, which is amazing. I was overwhelmed when it got to 5,000, but to have 10,000 is it's quite humbling. I can assure you. Next question from Rosie Butt. Oh, any plans to get back in the saddle, and also boots and shoes for walking and hiking, and why? Yeah, I used to have a horse, lovely horse. He was called Beau, a gentle giant. He was 16 hands, 3, 7/8 thoroughbred, 1/8 Irish Draught, liver chestnut. I'll put some photos up. I loved him to bits, but he passed away. He was 23. Well, before I had Whippet, so probably 15 years ago. And when he went, I never rode again. I packed it up, and my knees wouldn't be able to cope now. And I don't think I could afford a horse, to be honest. Boots, a very good question. I've never had a lot of luck with boots. I mean, I'm quite a heavy chap. I think if you Google how long should a pair of walking boots last, you'll probably get the answer, well, 500 to 1,000 miles, depending on where you're walking. And if I sort of take these guys out on the forest every day, what's that, 2.5 miles, that's 900 miles before I even do the the filming. So, and that I probably do go through a pair of boots every year. Having said that, the ones I've got at the moment, I'm not going to show you, because if I went up and got them, these two I think will be going out, but I did write them down. Carrymore men's Bodmin weather-tight hiking boots, 45 quid off Amazon, and I bought them in January 2024, so it nearly had 2 seasons, and they're still going strong, showing no sign of wear. So that would be my recommendation for walking boots. Right, are you still with us? Next question, Harrison 7351. Is there any particular view or views on a certain walk that are most memorable to you? And also, would you consider doing some walks in Somerset? And also, Shelley Faithful says, would you ever do walks further into Somerset? Well, as far as views are concerned, anywhere on the Jurassic Coast, Somerset, yes, I've got one planned for 2026 at Boroughbridge, and I think it takes me to a settlement called, now you might be able to help me on this, it's written P-A-T-H-E, I'm presuming that's paid, but if it's not, if someone could let me know, that'd be great. Next question, Simon Barker. I like the background music that accompanies your wonderful videos. How do you go about choosing the tracks, and does anyone help or choose? That's a good question. I like to be quite neutral with the music, not too rocky or jazzy. And I find sort of the gentle country music seems to fit in well with the walking scenes. So I get all my music from the YouTube audio library, which is free and free of copyright. I think a lot of the tracks are from Chris Haugen and Dan Lebowitz. There was one year, there was a lovely chap contacted me, Mark Spruce, who composes music, and he asked me would I like to use some of his music, and I said, well, yeah, for free. It was lovely. And I think I used about 7 of his tracks. They were all guitar. Yeah, and used that for about a year, but now I'm back onto the YouTube audio library. For dogs, if I'm doing a scene where I'm following the dogs, that'll be slightly a bouncier feel to the music. and obviously the Whippet zoomies, and things like, well, with the drone, you want a sort of nice, relaxing, there's some harp music I use, and also some piano music, but I tend to choose it myself. It's really a case of just trying to fit it in to something that's appropriate on screen. Next question, Paul Oggy RMB. Hi Dave, I love the videos, love the dogs pit stops and zoomies, and how you give so much information on every walk. Where did the name Fiver come from? Oh, well, I've said that already. Yeah, the rabbit in Watership Down, quite appropriate considering the number of rabbits you try and chase. Next question from Peter William Johnson, basically asking if I could do an episode about Yateley and Hertford Bridge. Actually, I did prepare a walk at Yateley a while, well, 2 or 3 years ago, but for some reason, or Yateley Common, but for some reason I never did it. So maybe I need to look back and, yeah, check it out. Now, 3 questions here. We're not long to go, by the way. 3 questions here, all very similar. Kev Williams says, I'd like to ask if there are any differences between filming with Logan and filming with Fiver, other than Fiver not liking Chris. Natalie Sperling Holt says, is Fiver doing a good job of filling Logan's paws and shoes? Both beautiful dogs. And Andrew Norris, I know Andrew, hello to you. I'm interested in your dogs. How is Logan enjoying his retirement? I don't think you can see him here. He's half asleep. How does he spend his days, and what kind of stimulation does he get so that he doesn't get bored? Well, they're both super dogs. I mean, Logan was an absolute joy to have out on a walk. So well behaved. He would be by me the whole time. He had no prey drive. And he had his little quirks, you know, stripping bushes of blackberries, and he liked to dog dips and the Piper's Chris. Fiver, yeah, he's a different chap, cheekier. He's got a much higher prey drive. He's fine with ponies, cattle, donkeys, but deer, rabbits, squirrels, people on bikes, anything that moves. And to be fair, you know, it's what he was bred for. A lot of his pedigree, his breeding is from the racing whippet lines, whereas Logan was more from the showing line. But he is very obedient. You know, he does competitive obedience, and he's getting to know the ropes. You know, when I've stopped to do a reading from a book or something like that, he's quite happy just to lie down and have a snooze. So, yeah, well, I think he's fitted in quite well. As far as Logan's retirement, well, you know, he still gets a walk every day, and you know, he's fairly fit. And I always make sure that I have a play with both of them. And of course, Monty, I think, he's out in the conservatory. That's my old whippet. Yeah, I give them a little play in the afternoon. In fact, I've made a video, it's about 7 minutes long, showing me doing a bit of obedience work out in the garden, sort of relaxed obedience, you know, using hoops and jumps and cones and things. And I might put that up sometime around Christmas. You might find it interesting. I've got 3 questions very similar. From Susan, what was your previous career? And what was the impetus behind starting to film your walks? Did anyone inspire you to do so? Also, did it feel strange at first? The New Forest Explorer asks, I've always wondered what Dave used to do for a living and what inspired you to start a YouTube channel. And Sarah Morris says, how did you learn to make and edit films like that? Was it your occupation or self-taught? Well, as far as my occupation is concerned, I left school at the age of 17 with 3 A-levels. I took my A-levels a year early, and they were in geography, chemistry and biology. I had no idea what I wanted to do for a living, so I got a job with what was then Midland Bank as a cashier, and showed no ambition whatsoever, and stayed with them for the next 38, 39 years. And I worked my way up, you know, eventually got to junior management. I was a branch manager at places like, I don't know, Stenning, Storrington, which are little towns and villages in West Sussex. Then became a business banking manager. And then towards the end, I was what's known as an agricultural banking manager, basically just looking after farming businesses in the sort of Dorset, Wiltshire, Somerset area. So I guess I would have built up some sort of presentation skills from there. But as far as filmmaking, I had absolutely no experience at all, certainly not in editing. So most of it is self-taught or watching how other folk do it. The editing has been a steep learning curve and still is. As to who inspires me, or no, the other question, the first question was what got me started. I just started watching other YouTube videos and I thought, well, I wouldn't mind having a go at that. And I wasn't aware of anybody doing something similar, in the New Forest. So that's how that started. And as far as inspiration, a guy I look up to a lot is, you might have heard of him, John Rogers. He's probably a similar age as me, different Terry. He's got a beard. And he does walks in London every Sunday. I think his videos come out. Relaxed, bit of information. He produces them so well. Right, on to the last page here. Windleman 1. Love your videos, Dave, and have done many of your walks. Are there any other walks you want to do that include chalk streams? Yeah, I mean, I've loved some of those Hampshire walks that include the River Itchen, the Meon, and the Test. They're beautiful, clear, crystal clear, and yeah, I'm hoping to do some more for sure. Final question from a viewer then, from James Han. It would be great to know a little more about you. Nothing too detailed, more just about where your love of walking comes from. Well, I don't know about walking. I mean, I probably started, running was my first love. In my early 20s, I was a reasonable, hide yourself, lad. I was a reasonable 400-metre runner. I ran for Edinburgh Athletic Club in the British League for about 4 years. In fact, I was looking back into some of my old training diaries, and gosh, I'm going to name drop here, but some of those British League fixtures that I was racing at, there was one which I think the 100 metres was won by a Linford Christie, and third was Daley Thompson. I wonder what ever happened to those guys. And there was a Scottish Championship one year where I competed. There was Alan Wells in the 100, and Tom McKean was in the I think he was in the 400 that I was in. But I never quite made it to the very top. I had an ambition to run for Scotland, but the nearest I got was there was a possibility I might make the relay, 4x400 relay. I came fourth in a Scottish 400-metre final one year, but I didn't get picked. There we go. But when I wanted to hear one other name drop, when I was living in Sussex, there was a guy, Mark Rowland, who won the bronze at the 1988 Olympics over in the steeplechase. He lived in the next village, and we trained together. And from time to time, we used to train at Brighton with Steve Ovett. So I got to see a lot of interesting people. And when the speed went, I just carried on doing longer distances, but nothing spectacular because I'm not built for long distance running, as you can see. Okay, I'm nearly going to wrap it up. There's just two questions. This is from folk that they didn't write in, but they're questions that I'm often asked. Firstly is, have I ever had any issues filming in public? And I have to say I'm quite lucky. I mean, I take a fairly relaxed approach to filming. it's surprising as far as the law of the land is concerned what you can film. If you're in a public place or on a a footpath or something, you can pretty much film what you like within reason. There are some exceptions. You can't film somebody in their garden or in their window, and there are a few restrictions. But walking down the street, technically, you can film people. I don't want to film people. I don't want people in my videos. So I tend to film very early in the morning. And when I'm filming someone's house, say it's a building that was once a pub, I'll make sure that their car registration plate can't be seen, or if there's I did have one problem or an issue once when someone saw me taking a photo and they came out, wanted to know what was going on. I explained what I was doing. Their concern was that there was a really nice statue in their garden, and they just didn't want it being made public. So although technically, because I was in a public footpath and I could see it from the footpath, and I didn't. Funny enough, an issue I do have from time to time, it's happened 3 times, is with farmers when I'm out in the countryside. I suppose because I've got a flat cap, the whippet, the satchel, am I someone out doing a bit of rabbiting or illegal hair coursing, or am I staking out for some hair coursing? And I can understand. I mean, I was filming about 3 weeks ago, and it happened, and I could see this 4x4 in the distance driving towards me across the field, and it was the farmer. I knew what he was going to ask, and he got out. He was quite pleasant, and when I told him what I was doing, he was fine. But yeah, touch wood, I've never had any real major problems. I think it's just a case of being sensible. And the final question, you may or may not be interested, I don't know. Somebody did ask me, do I make money doing YouTube? Not really. The money I get is from the advertising income, from the adverts that you see at the beginning of the video. I probably make, on average, I don't know, 130, 140 pounds a month. And that really doesn't cover the cost of the equipment or the expenses. It's extraordinary how they work it out. Some videos, I think it depends how long your video is and how many people watch it and how long they watch it for. So I think the average for my videos, I get £3.60 per 1,000 views, but there's a huge variation. I mean, I've got one video where I'm getting £6.60 for 1,000 views, and another one that's getting 90 pence. I could make more if I put adverts in the middle of the video, but I don't know about you, but I get tremendously annoyed if I'm deep into a video and then this advert crops up. So I've always never had them. I don't mind if I'm watching a really good professional video. Yeah, okay, I'll accept that I've got to watch an advert. But if you've got a channel that's got 3,000 subscribers and the video's only got a couple of hundred views, and you put an 8-minute video up and it's got 3 lots of adverts, I think that's taking the mickey. I was speaking to Paul Whitewick when I was out with him, and he was explaining that if I did have mid-roll adverts, I'd actually make more money, because YouTube actually will promote your video more, because YouTube, of course, will take a chunk of the money as well. I think that's us done, isn't it? Well done, lads. Thanks for your contribution. This is what life is like for a whippet after they've done their walk. 3 hours till they get fed next. Well, thank you very much if you're still watching. Oh, actually, there was one other thing I meant to say. People are asking, how long do people watch my videos for? The average retention percentage is 50%. So basically 50% of the viewers will watch the whole video, and that might not sound that great, but I'm told for a walking video it's quite good, especially a walking video that lasts 20 minutes. It would be different if you had a YouTube channel say you were a plumber and had lots of videos 5 minutes long showing you how to do something, I don't know, how to change a washer on a tap. Well, you wouldn't watch a 5-minute video and stop watching halfway through thinking, I wonder what that happened. So yeah, 50% retention, which I'm told is quite good. That's it. I say thank you for watching. I hope you are able to continue watching us through 2026. We've got lots of exciting places to go. Continuing to look at New Forest, Dorset, Wiltshire, Somerset, Hampshire, and we're going to, and Devon, and we're going to do our first trip over to the Isle of Wight, which will mean your first trip on a ferry. See how you cope with that. Lovely. Well, thanks for watching, and until we meet again, cheerio.